Hey guys, this is New Sensei. Today I'm going to go through a very interesting resource. This is the Rio 2016 Archery Equipment List, which is made by Maxim Zopfman. Thanks Max, this is a fantastic resource. What this is, it's a chart of every archer who competed in the 2016 Rio Olympic Games, men and women, and it outlines every bit of their equipment, from their riser to their limbs to their veins and finger tap. It's such an amazing resource to have. So you can find this information elsewhere, but this has been compiled into some very useful formats. You have the complete listing of all 128 archers, men and women, and by default it's ranked from first to last based on their finishing in the knockout rounds. You can also sort by country, by name, by score in the ranking round, as well as by each individual equipment. You can also sort by recurve women only, recurve women final 8, the recurve men in terms of their knockout rounds, and the recurve men final 8 as well. So you can see all this yourself, but I'm going to use the overall list. Now, there are a few goals in this. I'm not going to go through every single part in a different video. If you want to see a more of a statistical analysis, Sure Shot Archery does this. I'm going to do this as a more general approach because I have two different goals here. The first goal is to satisfy curiosity. A lot of us love to look at specifications and what people use, and seeing what the world's best are using. It's fascinating to see the trends and patterns and the number of brands being used. The second reason is, how does it affect us as an average archer? I mean, if the world's best are using these things, then surely we should use it as well. And archery equipment is a bit unlike other sports where the very top end gear is already accessible to the average archer. It will cost a lot more, but you can buy it right away. Now, what's stopping you from buying top-end equipment? It's mostly money. That's really it. But do you need to get top-end equipment? And this is what we're trying to answer here, because what the very best use isn't necessarily what you need to use as a developing or average archer. So we'll go through these two goals. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through each one, riser, limbs, plunge, and so on. I'm going to sort by alphabetical order, because that will give us the quickest indication of general brand names and bow types and models and so on. Some of these are more obvious than others, and some will be quite interesting. This will be mostly a casual talk through. I'm not going to structure this in particular informative way, but as I'm going through, I'll put up some visuals on the side so you can see what I'm talking about in case you don't know what these things are. Okay, so let's go through the riser. Okay? So I'll sort by alphabetical order. And we see a few different brands. So we've got 4 Fivics, all of them using the Titan Plus riser. We have one archer who's from the Ivory Coast, who's using a Gillo. And the rest, the majority, I believe, are Hoyt. Look at this. Most archers, Hoyt HPX. That's a fairly old bow by now, but still a very good bow. The Iron X is fairly newer. This is interesting. The Hoyt GMX. That's a lot of Hoyt GMXs. Now, this was a great bow around 5+ years ago. But it's still a very competitive bow. This is actually really interesting to see them at Hoyt, because people these days are using the HPX, the GPX, or there's only one GPX. The Prodigy is the newest bow in the market. Wow. The majority of people are using Prodigies. There's a Prodigy RX and a Prodigy XT, which is the newer high-end model. I think currently, as of this video, the Prodigy XT is the newest bow in the Hoyt line. So that's obviously the majority of Prodigies. That's not surprising. But I'm just interested in the GMX. That's something which is a bit more affordable these days. Very interesting that people are doing that. Include some high-ranking archers. We see Kibo Bay, number 3 Korean archer, Hoyt GMX. Lisa Unruh from Germany also uses Hoyt GMX. Very fascinating to witness that. Going down, we have a few MK offers. We have a few PC X appeals. These are very interesting because PC isn't particularly well known for the recurve bows. The X appeal is one of the few models they release, and a couple of people are using them. Both from Venezuela, which is interesting enough. And then we have the win-wins. We have the Nanomax, the Wiawiz Nanomax, which is the current newest model on the market for win-win. And we see the Australians using it, Taylor Worth, Ryan Tyke. I know the third Australian, Alec Potts, he used a Hoyt. But the others using win-win. And then we have the other models. We have one win-win AL1, which is interesting, a Japanese archer, and we have a lot of AXTs. And this is a slightly newer model. Basically, the AXT is the aluminium version of the win-win Inno CXT, very similar design, including the men's winner, the Korean Kubon Chan. He used an AXT. A lot of AXT risers and a few CXTs, which is what I currently use. This was the cutting edge bow around 5+ years ago, but now it's this shift going towards the aluminium riser, which is quite interesting. The aluminium riser, the AXT, I think it's a bit cheaper than what you find in the CXT, or the Nanomax, or the AL1 even. So this is actually very interesting to see this breakdown. Going back up, if we sort by the final placings, we see the top archers win and Hoyt prodigies and win and Hoyt. That's basically the top, top 10. Sort by sort of the ranking round. The same pattern here, win and Hoyt. And it's one Fivix, interestingly. So going back to the limbs now. We'll sort by alphabetical order. We see again Fivix. Again, all the people using Fivix are using Fivix limbs. That kind of does make sense. And we see mostly it's a brand match. So Hoyt goes with Hoyt, win goes with win, and so on. It's not always the case, but usually is. It seems that the Hoyt Quattros are by far the most popular limb, and that's probably their best limb at the moment anyway. The Hoyt Quattros. Well, that's a lot of Hoyt Quattros. That's a lot of Hoyt Quattros. In fact, practically every Hoyt archer uses a Hoyt Quattro, except for a couple of people using the F7. But they're using the Formula HBX, which is a little different. So yeah, this makes sense. The prodigies, the Formula HBX, they're all Hoyt Quattros. So that's their best limb at the moment. Then we see some MK archery. So we see some of the Hoyts flipping over to MK. I could have sworn I saw some win before, but okay. So all the Hoyts are using Hoyt limbs, and then we see. Oh no, there are some differences. We'll bring that later on. So okay, so MK archery, MK rises makes some sense. And the wins, and most of these wins are the Inno EX. That's what I currently use as well. And that's not surprising. And the Inno EX is probably the best limb. The Wiawiz is a newer limb, and you can see there's actually a lot of Wiawizes. But yeah, the Inno EX is still a more popular limb, which is quite interesting. And what's even more interesting is a lot of the Hoyt use win limbs. I don't think any win archers use Hoyt limbs. We'll double check that. Going cross brand isn't that big a deal, really. It's quite normal. But I think Hoyt and win have been too giant. You can't expect them to use their own limbs. But it seems that no win archer uses Hoyt limbs, but some Hoyt archers use win limbs. So that's an interesting shift. Okay, so riser and limbs, we see the domination is in the Hoyt and win risers and limbs. The plunger. I've done reviews on plungers before, and really, the Biter plunger is by far the best plunger. So from the top, we've got 3 AE golds. We have 1 AS, which is I think a French brand. I'm not too sure about this. Biter being a German company, they have the best plunger, the most adjustable one. It's all the way down. We've got a few Fivix, a couple Shibui. Shibuis are not bad either, but they tend to be not preferred compared to the Biters. And we have a few wins. I've used the win plunger as well. It's also a very nice plunger. Probably second best compared to the Biter, but the Biter is by far the preferred plunger. The rest, which is interesting. Okay. Alright, this is interesting. Now, in previous videos, people have taken a shot at me for using a Hoyt Superest on my bow because I think, oh, you know, using a $1,000 bow, why using a $2 rest? I want to clarify this because the Hoyt Superest, the Hoyt SR is the Hoyt Superest, okay? The plastic rest are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. Just because they're not $50 and made from metal and magnetic, you know, clips doesn't mean it's a bad rest. Bear in mind that it wasn't that long ago that the Super Rest were the best rest in the field because you could buy them for very cheap. They were quite durable, and people shot records with these rests. So it's not like I'm being cheap. At the moment, I don't use a Hoyt Superest. Just the fact that people kind of bag it and say it's a really cheap rest. Well, it is cheap, but it isn't bad. So the rest, we got one AAE. I think that's the wraparound rest. It's a more complex one. There's an ARE mag, which I haven't heard of before. We've got quite a few Hoyt Superest. And of course, you can't really see it in replays because you don't see that side of the bow. But the fact that we've got quite a few Hoyt Superest, including, what's the highest ranking? We've got a Taipei, 5th place. We've got Korean, 8th place, the Hoyt Superest. That's, you know, I mean, a lot of these guys finish mid to low, but we've got a few top finishers, like top 10s, using the Hoyt Superest. So don't diss the Superest, guys. It's a cheap rest, but that's something, it still works at top end competition. Alright, now Shibuya is by far the most popular rest. I believe this would be the Shibuya Ultima. I currently use that. That is by far the most popular rest. By far the most popular rest. Yeah. And they've got a Spigarelli and a 3 Win-Wins. I've used the Win-Wins as well. They're alright. I think it's Shibuya by far. I mean, it's like the standard now. It's I think a $50 rest. Very adjustable, and kind of nice looking as well. So people like using that. Alright, next. We have the clicker. And wow, that's also quite a bit of a monopoly on clickers. So I've got AAE Micro 2. So these are interesting clickers. Some of these are site mounted. I'm not sure. I don't think these are site mounted ones, but I'm pretty sure AAE. I mean, I currently use one. The AAE does have a site mounted clicker, but by this stage, most people will tune their arrows to shoot from the regular clicker. Biter by far is the strongest clicker here. They do make a couple of models. They do make a black and silver model, both aluminium. But it just seems really obvious that Biter is the preferred clicker for the majority of archers, and Win-Win is a distant second place. And I currently use a Win-Win for my short arrows, and yeah, that seemed to be the second preference. Going back up, wow, this is really fascinating. The sight, wow, this is where things get really interesting because the sight is one of the big determining factors that that divides archers, and also a good sight will make it much easier to have good performance, good results. So we have a few AS sights. And the rest, I think the majority are Axel. Interesting because Axel wasn't that big a company about 4, 5, or 10 years ago. And that's really taken off, especially they've become official sponsors of many events. So the Axel sites, they are currently in the peak of the market. Axel achieved that is easily by far. I haven't used Axel personally, and I doubt many people who do, but that's something taken off a lot. You see that quite a bit. Fivix have a couple. Shibuya Dual Click. This is interesting. The Dual Click is the more budget version of the Ultima, and this is interesting how we have one person from Myanmar who uses the Dual Click, and a Korean archer. That's Chang Hye-jin, the gold medalist, uses a Dual Click. That's actually really interesting. Just saying that you don't need the very expensive sites to. I'm speechless here because that's quite unexpected. But the site works fine, so there's nothing wrong with the site. But everybody else seems to be using the Shibuya Ultima Carbon. That's by far the next most popular site. I use for myself. Sherlock is only 3 there, and Win-Win has a few. They make some decent sites. The WA600 is currently their most expensive site, and I think the only site they're making right now, so that's also a very good site. But Shibuya, the Ultima Carbon by far, no aluminium versions, just the carbon. So there you go. Alright, next we have the sight pin. Now the sight pin, for those that know, it's the aperture. It's the thing that it's the sight ring that people use. Now, by the standard means that it's the one that comes with the sight, which is basically an iron ring with a red dot somewhere. There are a few people who will change the sight pin for a different aperture. I think the most popular is the Titan scope, which I also currently use. So I've got a Spiga, I think a Spigarelli one. Standard, I think the majority of archers use a standard pin. And we go all the way down to the bottom. That's the vast majority right there. Go to the very bottom, the Titan scope is the next most popular. So what do we have here? All the Australians use Titan scopes. There are 3 Titan micros, which are smaller, and then the regular Titan scope. So this is the most popular alternative aperture, but it seems that the majority of archers just stick with the standard sight. So that's actually really fascinating. If you sort by the final scores, it seems that the, gold medalists, silver and bronze all use standard apertures. Brady Ellison is the exception. He used a Titan scope and he came in 3rd in bronze. And then we see, again, most of the standards, there's a few Titan scopes up there. So this isn't a huge determining factor. I still think that the aperture is personal preference. You don't need to buy a Titan scope, but if you want one, then it has certain advantages. But it seems most people perform just fine for standard sights, which is interesting. So I don't use standard, I use Titan personally. I might reconsider that. Stabilizers, well, this is a bit more of an open market. There's a lot of different brands here. So let's have a look here. We've got AE Hot Rods, Apogee, Arctic, AS, Bee Stinger. They're getting pretty popular now. And Bray Ellison uses Bee Stingers. Biter, they've got a particular model of stabilizer. It's a multi-rod one. And only 4 people use it, so that's interesting. Cartel, I've got one there. The Doinkers. Now, I use the Doinker Platinum High mods, and they're fairly popular. Not dominating popular, still fairly popular. Eastern Contours. Interesting, that's a very popular stabilizer. I haven't used it myself, that's a very popular one. The Eastern X10, which is a stabilizer. The Z-Flex, Fivic stabilizers. The Fuse Blade, which is an interesting design. The Win and Win HMCs are also very popular. I think, wow, that's the most popular stabilizer, is the Win and Win HMC series. And they've got a few more. We've got the Yawi series as well. Yeah, there we go. That's the Win and Wins. The Win and Wins are by far the most popular stabilizers, the Yawis and HMC series. Alright, next we have the arrows, so the shafts. So this is where things get no surprise here. What's fascinating is one person from Kenya uses the ACE, and the ACE was a very good shaft, and now it's second place at the X10. It's been that way for the last decade or so. So the fact that one person is still using it, it's okay. Just finished 49th, decent ranking round as well. ACs work fine, by the way. I mean, even though you have the market domination of the X10s, these aren't bad arrows, and again, it's often you more than the arrow. We've got a few Nano P Extremes. That's we got 6 people using them, but everybody else is X10. So that seems to be a no-brainer. Everybody uses the X10 arrows. All right. I just got my own X10s, by the way. They do fly magnificently. I haven't fully tuned them yet, but they're definitely a great performance competition arrow. The most expensive you can probably buy right now, but probably well worth it. Next, the Nox. No points here, but the points are pretty standard. Most people use either the stainless steel X10 point, or for those who have a bit of money, and for these guys who are sponsored, probably the tungsten target points, which are quite interesting. The Nox, probably not too interesting, but we got the bite in out. Yeah, this isn't that important. Yeah, the pin Nox. It seems like the Eastern pin Nox are by far the most popular. And with a few bite pin Nox, but basically Nox and Nox. There's no real performance variation there. Now the veins. This is where things get pretty interesting. Now, I want to draw your attention to Jake Kaminsky. He's a veteran American archer. He's been on the team for a long time. He's the only person in the field who's using straight veins. Every other vein in this list is a spin wing or a variant of a spin wing. So they're the special curled veins. The AAE Max is a straight vein. I vaguely recall that Jake mentioned that he can't be bothered with the curly veins. The straight veins work. I mean, he is a good shooter. And he's consistently in the American team and a top archer for a long time. So if he uses straight veins, they work. The problem with the curly veins, if you're not well tuned, they're very high maintenance. It can be very annoying to put on. Clearly it's the preference for practically every archer in the field, but it doesn't mean you have to use them. And really, like spinny veins, they don't make you a better archer. They can make my line is, they can make good groupings better, but they don't make bad groupings good. So people like using these sometimes, but you kind of have to know what you're doing before you stick them onto your random arrow. So yeah, one straight vein, the AAE Max. The rest are curly. So LE veins are very popular. The Gas Pro veins, only a couple of people using them. The curly veins, spider veins, including Brady Ellison, because he has his own brand label for spider veins. The Brady Ellison spider veins, obviously. And the spin wings are by far the most popular. They were the original curled veins, I believe. At least they say so. The vast majority are spin wings, and then we have XS wings, which are good. They've taken a big hold in the market now. I used to use them. I still do, actually. So they're very nice veins as well. A lot of these are cosmetic and more so than functional. But if you look at the final place finishes, spin wings, one spider, that's Brady Ellison. Not surprised there. Spin wings, and we've got a 4th place on XS wings. So yeah, that seems to be more of a personal preference thing. And lastly, and not the least important, is the finger tab. This is really interesting. There's a lot of variations. We have a few A and F. We've got the AAE, which I believe would be the AAE Cavalier. They make several tabs, but the Cavalier is the most important one. So that's fairly popular. We have one Angel. This used to be a very popular brand of finger tabs and other products, but Angel's kind of taken back seat to other ones. We have a Simon Fairweather finger tab. Now, Simon Fairweather is an Australian gold medalist back in Sydney 2000. And he designed his own finger tab, and that's one person is using it right now in the top 128. Fivix is by far the most popular finger tab. Now, that's just a very interesting thing. But bear in mind, this is just the manufacturer. There could be different models, but most people use a very similar model. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but I'll bring it up in a few moments. But fascinating to see the vast majority are using Fivix. I've got to give this a try at some point. We've got a few people using the KSL Gold tab. I've got this myself. I've got quite a lot of people using it, so a fairly good tab too. Designed by Casey Lee, the American coach. We have a few We Are With EZ tabs. This is the newer tab they have. And then we have one EZR. I don't have the EZ. I might try it at some point. I have the EZR. That's kind of a pretty big tab, and it doesn't seem that many people are using it. And nobody's using my tab, which is the Win 360. It's a pretty old tab by now, so it seems that that's amazing. The Fivix tabs. All right, so wow, okay, so that's my little ramble on the different equipment. Hopefully, it's interesting because going back to the question, like how does this affect you? Should you buy certain things because the best people are using them? And in some ways, like there are two trains of thought here. The first one is, well, if the best people are using them, then there must be good equipment, and therefore it's worth getting. But the second thing is, just because everyone uses it doesn't mean you have to use it. And that's, I think, that there is a midpoint here. Certain things are undoubtedly quality. I'll give you an example. The X10s are quality arrows. There aren't many arrows which can match X10s in terms of their straightness and tolerance, in terms of the performance at 70 meters. These are by far the best arrows. Do you need them? No. But I guess if you're going to like serious competition, this is probably something you will want to get sooner or later. But then you have things like the risers and the limbs. The fact that there are variations, the fact that people are using old models, the fact that people are using other brands besides Hoyt and Win, it means that you can still do very well on a non-mainstream riser or non-mainstream limb. Certain things reflect the market domination of certain brands. The Biter plunger is undisputably the best plunger. The Shibuya wrist is one of the best wrists, so do bear in mind the Hoyt Superest is a nice second place. The clicker Bite is very popular. This is more of a preference thing. I use a win-win myself, but Bite is a very popular choice. The sights are very interesting. Lots of variation. You have the Axel Achieves and the Shibuya Ultimas. The sight pins are quite interesting. You don't need to invest in a different sight pin. It seems that the standard sight is the standard for most archers. Some people do prefer a different sight aperture, but not required. Stabilizers seems to be anyone's game, really. There's so many different variations. The vanes, only one person uses straight vanes, everybody else uses spinnies. Do you have to? No, but I guess, if you're shooting at that level, these things will make a difference. And last, the tab is the most interesting thing. And personally, ironically, I guess I started off on making videos on finger tabs. And I think looking at this, the tab is one of the most important things, I think, for a new archer, even for a veteran archer, because it's the only part of your body touching the bow, apart from the grip. And I think that if you pick the right finger tab, it makes an amazing amount of difference in the way you shoot. Now, I've personally used so many tabs. I've used the AAE Cavalier, I've used the Win-Win 360, the KSL, the Win-Win EZR. I think looking at this, I am going to buy some new tabs. I'm going to buy the Fivix. I'll see what they're using. I might buy the EZ because it's a variation of the EZR. It's a different design. If it's popular with certain shooters, in fact, if we look at the top finalists, we'll see the last result here. So Fivix, I mentioned before, Fivix, KSL, Fairweather, and the EZ. So this seems to be the most popular tab. I'm not entirely sure why, because I haven't used it myself, but I'm going to have to give it a go. So hopefully this is an interesting rundown. This may affect your future archery purchases, or if you're really spoiling yourself, then you might want to get something right away. Do I have a definitive answer about how much it matters? Well, no, of course not. I think there's a lot of variations, and really what you use up to you. You use what works best for you, not what other people use. But if you want a reference, you want to see what works and what people find most useful or very popular, this is a great thing to look at. I'll leave the link in the description below. Hopefully this gives you some insight, and a bit of curiosity has been satisfied. Anyway, this is New Sensei. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.